Hello, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for all the participants and the speakers to be in this excellent conference, online conference. I think it's very exciting. Our first track was very fruitful, and now we are moving into the second track. I'm the moderator, Dr. Ali Al-Soufi, Associate Professor and Independent ICT Consultant. We're gonna have 4 speakers today, very interesting and important topics in the age of COVID. The theme will be insight into the world of online learning and development. We're gonna start with the first one, so that because we have 15 minutes only for each speaker. The first one will be our honored speaker, Dr. Fadi Alou. Let me just give a quick introduction to him. Dr. Fadi is professor and department head of computer science and engineering and he's the director, of course, of the HP Institute, American University of Sharjah. His research and industry interests are cybersecurity, mobile applications, design optimization, and so on. And he's very active, mashallah, and he has more than 100 plus publications. Let me welcome Dr. Fadi, Professor Fadi, and please, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Ali. Assalamu alaikum, everybody, and good afternoon. Let me start first by thanking Work Smart Bahrain for the kind invitation. I usually used to attend this in person every September. It's unfortunate that COVID kept us away, but inshallah next September we'll be able to meet again in person and see you face to face. So I understand I have 15 minutes as of now, so I need to be done by almost 1:30. So today's my talk is mainly focused about the importance of AI education. It's not really about e-learning. It's more on why computer science or AI, a degree in AI or computer science today is important given the digital transformation that we're going through. So as Dr. Ali mentioned, I am a professor and the department head of the computer science and engineering unit at the American University of Sharjah in UAE. I've been with them for the last almost 18 years. And this is a lovely image of our campus. So let me start by saying here that we probably have seen this joke going around on social media, almost a few months back. And while this is a joke going around saying what is the thing that tricked or triggered the digital transformation in your organization, and we know the answer was COVID, but it's really a reality. This is the reality what we're seeing today. Almost everything is becoming basically digital, we see lots of news articles, lots of media reports showing almost every sector switching through this digital transformation journey. And it's at this point, it's a matter of whether you will survive or you will miss the train. So it's a must. It's no longer an option. And if you go back in time, just for a few years back, the idea of digital transformation and encouraging governments and the private sector and universities to introduce that has been always on the news. We see this from World Economic Forum, with many advantages, of course, for digital transformation. We are aware, of course, of the fourth industrial revolution, and we know that today with Industry 4.0, making a precedence, we see everything becoming smart, smart governments, smart cities, smart factories, autonomous, IoT, machine learning, AI. We see all these buzzwords that are going around us, and really, most of these buzzwords fall at the end under the AI or the computer science umbrella. And it is really changing our economy. Again, it's a matter of survival or basically or diminishing. Going back in time to 2017, I would like to give credit here in the UAE that our leaders were visionary, and they saw the need for this fourth industrial revolution and the need for the AI and the digital transformation, and all these terms really go hand by hand together here. And I think this was mentioned earlier by some of the speakers in the earlier session, that the UAE started the first Ministry of Artificial Intelligence. It was appointed back in almost October or September 2017. And if you look carefully at the mandate of that entity and the strategy for the AI and the use of AI, you will find that it's actually applicable in almost every application today. If you look at the sectors at the bottom of this slide, we see transportation, health, space, renewable energy, water, technology, education, environment, traffic. So it's no longer just a matter of talking about AI or delivering workshops about AI or digital transformation. No, it's about really showing examples, applying it, making the life of the users happier and easier and more convenient. So it's really gonna impact almost every part of our world today, or basically sectors today. Similarly, during that same year, a month before, actually in September 2017, also the UAE set a strategy for its fourth industrial revolution, which also, gave the foundations for each entity to move forward with this fourth industrial revolution. So we saw today that we have in the UAE, a center for the fourth industrial revolution, and probably, other countries in the Gulf also have similar entities and are cooperating. We saw, a merge of a lot of, smart initiatives. We see the Smart Dubai initiatives with lots of open access, data, access for open data, ideas, open for proposals, and so on. So we see that happening as we speak. And that did not stop here. The digital transformation now, given its importance, it was really important to also embed this into the school. So today, we know that our graduates from school and universities are digital natives, really, as opposed to digital immigrants. And that is because today, most of the schools offer computer science and cybersecurity and AI subjects within their their school content. And we saw also UAE here, this is from the Ministry of Education back in 2015, embedding that and starting that in the UAE K-12 schools. And we see, of course, more and more of that coming in as we speak. Other initiatives also, such as the UAE Coder. This has been around for, I think, the last 3 years, open for, students all the way at age 7, I believe, 7 to 10, and then 11 to 14, another batch, and so on. And you can see almost over 3,000 students have already completed the basic level, and we see almost 600 students completing the intermediate and more completing the advanced. So a lot of initiatives that are encouraging digital transformation and reflecting the importance today of the fourth industrial revolution and AI in making our economy better and our world a safer place and an easier place to live in. And I have to touch on COVID here because, again, I had mentioned that in the title, and everybody today is reflecting on how COVID, is impacting us. Well, yes, it did move the digital transformation a lot more faster than what we had let's say pre-March or pre-February 2020. However, also, as much as the news articles and so on reflect on the importance of the medical sector in, of course, combating COVID, and we really appreciate all their efforts and the frontline people in that sector and so on. But also we need to give AI some credit, because going back into some news articles, AI was actually able to detect this before the WHO or other entities detected, this Wuhan virus or the coronavirus. And this is an old article. This, as you can see, is from January 25. It talks about a company in Canada called Blue Dot. It's a private company that does research from news articles from different languages, I think 65 different languages, collects data, and then provides the content to its customers or its clients. At that time, it detected early indications of problems happening in Wuhan, and the outbreak of that virus in that city. And they immediately informed their clients and reported that there is a problem coming out of that city, and they were all able to report this to their clients before actually the news articles come out in the news, and WHO come out and declare that as a pandemic as we see today. They use, of course, AI and natural language processing and others. Not only that, they were able also to track the airlines that were leaving that city during that period of time, and they predicted where that virus would actually spread next and their predictions came right. They were able to share like 3 or 4 different cities where most of the passengers were leaving from Wuhan up to those cities, and indicated where that will basically, where the outbreak will appear next. And that could also have helped governments to control this further. So really, AI did play a big role. And not only that, we see today, AI and robotics, drones, helping in lots of things, such as, again, developing drugs, interacting with patients, sterilization, answering users, and so on. And the list goes on and on and on. But given the amount of time, we cannot really go through all of it. But really, we see today that the digital transformation or AI did really help in not only in the COVID, but in many sectors that we talk about. So the question is, AI, is a term that came out, and we teach this in our courses, came out in 1956, almost 70 years ago. So how come today everybody's talking about AI? How come nobody, made a big deal out of it, 30 or 40 or 20 even years ago? Well, that's because the foundations that we have today made it effective and made it powerful and made it useful in our day-to-day life. So I'm going to quickly go through some of those because I don't have much time here, but we know that we have today 5G, which is a fast network, which allows for data to be transferred back and forth between us and the cloud, or different sensors and different cloud. We have clouds, which opens the door for unlimited data storage, which also allows us now to have an infinite amount of data stored, and that would help our AI algorithms make better decisions. We have Internet of Things in the billions. We know today not millions but billions that are streaming data continuously through the cloud from different sensors around the world, and different smart cities and smart companies and so on, and smart homes. We have an abundant amount of data now that also is making these algorithms more accurate and more precise. The availability of strong algorithms such as the machine learning or deep learning algorithms that are also helping in making better predictions and better results. Security, cybersecurity, blockchain, another big topic today emerging, and we've heard that also, some of these terms mentioned earlier. The availability of fast hardware processing units, CPUs, whether it was CPUs or GPUs, and we know how GPUs today also are making a big impact in processing these processing these AI algorithms much faster and making things more accurate and so on. The availability of high performance computers. We have the biggest one in the Middle East available in KAUST, next door in Saudi Arabia. I'm sure we have some in Bahrain, we have some in the UAE, and so on. So robotics, again, making a big autonomous robotics specifically, in manufacturing and other applications, and and basically here in stores and checking out for replacing the tellers and autonomous cars. A lot of really things are happening around us today, and that are empowering AI to make these better decisions. So here we have another example from the farming sector, how it's becoming autonomous, streaming the data, analyzing what is wrong with the plant, and then injecting the right either treatment or water to basically help that plant. Drones also a big topic today. Everybody's talking about it and how it's making a big impact. But these are all again helping in driving AI to become very powerful today and very effective. VR, augmented reality, virtual reality. Again, I don't know, we have limited time here. Digital twins, another big topic today. How can I mirror an actual physical body in the space or in the sky or in the basically in the ocean, and have it model it in front of us? It was used by NASA earlier, but now it's spreading into other sectors and making a big difference. Digital twins, another big term. Natural language processing. We have courses on that today. So with all of these topics that are available, that is really driving AI to become very effective today and very powerful in a lot of sectors. And that's why we see governments here in UAE or in Bahrain basically driving this and encouraging it among the different entities. This is just an example from our program. This is our department, and these are some of the electives that we deliver. Just to show you how powerful this field is becoming today, the number of electives, these are not core courses or things that are required, but things that the students have to choose from. So they typically have to choose like 5 courses out of this. And it is very interesting to see that there are 9 different sectors. Under each sector, there are different areas, and it pretty much impacts every part of today's life. And that is why this is really, driving the enrollment today in computer science and computer engineering and AI to grow significantly, given its impact in the world today. This is an example of our enrollment in our department. We are right now stand at even the highest, the largest department across the whole university. And we have 4 different colleges in the university. So with almost 671, and we see over the last 2 or 3 years, the numbers did increase significantly, given the importance of this field and the demand in terms of job market and the awareness among the parents and the students and the employees and so on.
You have 1 more minute, Doctor.
Yes, I'm almost done here, Dr. Ali. So basically, to add to that, what we saw universities, including ours, do today to drive AI and push this forward is that they would introduce as a minor. So here we are introducing it as a minor in data science that is open for others. So somebody in business, somebody in mass communication or international studies can end up taking this and getting to know this. It's becoming now, something that complements your original degree, no matter what your original degree was. This is something that we also see happening today in the States, where they're coming with what's called CS plus X, where this is computer science plus an X. An X, as you can see on the bottom of the slide here, can be advertising, animal science, chemistry, any sector. So in the past, we saw people, get an MBA typically, regardless of what their undergraduate is. Today, everybody's jumping to a computer science degree or to basically an AI degree. The last 2 slides that I have here is that we are also, in the college doing a lot of things to promote, in the university are to promote this, the AI and the digital transformation, and to embed it in the students at a younger age. So we have this camp that we offer, every year, like 2 or 3 times. We've been offering it, since almost 3 years. And it's like a 1-week boot camp for students in school to learn about AI, computer science, computer engineering, which also is always pretty much sold out or basically full in our case. In addition to competitions, all the way to grade 4, as you can see here, where we encourage students to think of digital transformation, think of innovative ideas, and use technology to solve some of the most challenging problems today. With that, I'd like to thank you for the talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Professor Fadi. Very exciting presentation. We will leave the Q&A at the end of the session, and I will before I move to the next speaker, just a question for you to answer later, Dr. Fadi, in terms of how you're relating AI to the e-learning, how it's coupled together later on. Just sure. Maybe you can think about it while we are working with the second speaker. Thank you again. Let me welcome the second speaker, our honored speaker, Dr. Professor Jeff Zwoski. He is the CEO of Bahrain Polytechnic, and since 2017, actually. His multiple role over the 30 years career in higher education, including his previous service as president and vice chancellor at Sheridan College in Toronto, Canada. He's also served on numerous national advisory bodies and has been a speaker over 100 academic conferences and industry forums. Let me welcome Professor Jeff, and the platform is yours.
Great, thank you very much. It's my great pleasure and privilege to join you here today. I always think it's very exciting that in the context of that we're dealing with right now with COVID-19, that nonetheless, the academic world, the corporate world is still advancing new knowledge, thinking about how we're going to overcome this, but also advancing new and thoughtful ideas on our various sectors after this is all concluded. So I'm really pleased and privileged to be part of this conversation today, and thank you to the organizers for organizing. So it was just a scant few months ago that we at Bahrain Polytechnic, and what I'm going to do is walk you through a little bit of a case study in how an institution has grappled with the unforeseeable, which has been COVID-19. So it was, as I say, a few scant months ago that we were confronted with something that turned our world upside down. I would say that it was particularly challenging for us in Bahrain. And I say that because the world of e-learning had not been as familiar in the Kingdom of Bahrain as it might have been as it has been in other parts of the world. There hasn't been a great deal, especially in higher education, advance on e-learning for various reasons. But we were suddenly thrust into a circumstance where we had very little knowledge internally in terms of IT systems. Many of our faculty were very unfamiliar with how to operate in an entirely e-learning world. I would say we had some experience because there's always that level of hybrid learning where students are accessing learning management systems for curriculum. But really, distancing the teacher from the student was something that was quite new to us. And so, as I say, the world was turned upside down. We were fortunate in that this all struck and the separation began to take place during our mid-semester break. And so that bought us some time. We had a few weeks where we had the opportunity to get our IT systems into place, which are already in pretty good shape because we had most of our applications, as has been the case in Bahrain, in the cloud. So that was very helpful for us. But there was still much to be done with respect to curriculum on the academic side in adapting things in a way that would allow us to get to the end of the semester. And that was our strategic and targeted goal, was to ensure that we could get to the end of the semester successfully, have our students conclude their learning, and most importantly, for the students who were on the cusp of graduation, successfully conclude their studies so they could graduate and then get on to their career. So that was our goal. That was the challenge in the few weeks that we had mid-semester break to get things organized. And so that was a busy time for us. A unique challenge for us in going through that process was that Bahrain Polytechnic is a very practical, hands-on institution. So while there, of course, is theoretical components to our curriculum, much of the experience has to do with looking at things, touching things, practicing things, working in laboratories. That's just a very important part of the experience for our students, as well as what's importantly integrated into our curriculum is not just the hard technological skills, it's the employability skills that we know when our students graduate, our employers tell us are particularly valuable. And what are those? Those are things like communication skills, ability to work in teams, dealing with conflict, all the things that one encounters in a workforce. And we're very proud that we ready our students when on the first day of work to be able to contribute both in a technical way with respect to the job, but also as a valued member of the employment team. So that was particularly challenging because a lot of those skills are learned and are experienced beside your colleagues, with the teacher, working in teams. So that's something we wanted to ensure that we didn't lose. So that was important in terms of guiding us with respect to what the delivery mechanism would look like as we went forward. And we chose to use a mix of multiple technologies that would provide both asynchronous and synchronous components to delivery. So asynchronous being the student can log in at any time of their choosing, access some curriculum, do some studies, do some quizzes, post some answers, log off, do whatever else they're going to do in the course of the day, and then log on later and see how their colleagues have responded, to see how the teacher has responded to those students, the students' contribution. That gives the utmost in flexibility, that asynchronous mode of delivery, both for teachers and for students. But one thing that's lacking in that element is that other aspect I talked about working in teams and feeling a level of camaraderie and you know, just having a sense that you're live with your colleagues and with the teacher. So that's where the synchronous component came in. So we designed things in a manner that students could access their learning management system, which we use is Moodle, but integrated within Moodle is a technology that, and there are many of them, but the one we use is called Big Blue Button. And that allowed for that synchronous aspect of teaching and learning. So what we decided was important for us, and there was a lot of discussion on this because the priority, as you know, was all about social distancing and how do we keep people in their homes and keep them safe, but at the same time offer a high quality experience for our students that didn't sacrifice our principles around delivery. So what we chose to do was have our teachers come into our campus. And as I say, there was discussion related to that because that meant that they were getting in their cars and they were driving to campus. But what they encountered in campus was virtually an empty campus. So the issues of social distancing really weren't an issue because they walked from the parking lot into a classroom with one person in it, and that was them. But the important thing for us is it gave them access to all the tools that we make available for delivery, for this form of delivery. So the students were sitting in their homes with the various softwares that they required, and the teacher was solitarily in a classroom and engaging with the students. But they had access to ensure secure and reliable bandwidth that would ensure the students were getting the best possible experience in terms of being able to hear and see their teacher. But the teacher also had various tools available, of course, the computer, but we have what are called active boards or smart boards, which allows the teacher to stand up and be seen on camera, but at the same time, mimic what they would normally do in classroom in using a whiteboard, drawing on the whiteboard, putting up slides and various presentation things. So the students could see that, and the teacher was acting very familiar for themselves. They were in front of, the class was virtual, but they were in front of a class. They were standing at a whiteboard, and they were doing the things that were familiar to them in delivering to the class. Most of them were using technologies like microphones and headphones, so they had some flexibility to wander around and act like they would normally act. And so ultimately, by deploying these practices and these protocols, I'm happy to say that we were able to get through to the end of the semester quite successfully. There were a few bumps, as there always are in the first week or so with technology and getting things to settle down. But ultimately, by the end of the semester, things were running smoothly. We got students to the end. And one of the very touching elements to what occurred was that our students themselves, led by our student council, produced a video. And the video was called Our Heroes. And it was actually paying testament to the extraordinary work of our faculty and what they went through to actually ensure the students were successful through to the end of the semester. If I had time, I'd like to be able to show it to you, but I can subsequently send a link to it. It's on YouTube. It was very touching, and it was led by our students, and it was their thoughts. And it essentially went into the classroom with videos and cameras to show the hard work and the things that our teachers were doing. And it helped bring the teachers and the students together. It was a very unexpected, but very touching aspect to that experience last spring. So what about the new year? So we were then, okay, we made it through, we breathed a sigh of relief. Now, how do we get started on the next semester? And I'll just use one example because I know the time is short, but one of the innovations that the team came up with, and this would be our registrarial staff and our IT department, is one of the important aspects to the enrollment process at Bahrain Polytechnic is that there are many fewer available seats than we have demand. So there is a process by which we have to select the students who will come to the Polytechnic. One of those elements is the marks that students have in high school. So that's important, and that's something that we attended to. But something that we've always done since our beginnings 12 years ago is to use entry testing. And so the students are required to take a test, all of them. Every student who's an incoming student has to take a test. And that becomes part of the process by which we select the students who are coming in. So we had about 4,000 applicants who were desirous of getting into the Polytechnic, and we only had about 800 available seats. And in this case, it's virtual seats, but nonetheless seats, because that's how much resource and faculty that we have. So we had to have a mechanism to bring those students in. So what we did is, once again, we deployed technology And we used the technology I described early, big blue button, in order for us to have small cohorts of 8 students at a time taking the test. And what we did was we harnessed the strength of the entire organization, administrative staff, senior leadership, everyone in the organization pulled together to go into small sections of classrooms and observe these students while they were taking their tests, because we need to ensure security. So the system allowed us to lock things down like videos. The students were required to show us an empty room with no people in it. And our staff, and really the entire organization, people who normally wouldn't be interacting with students, were tasked with sitting through the exam and observing the students while they were taking the tests. And it was a massive effort to get 4,000 students through this testing process in multiple cohorts, time after time after time, over the course of 2 weeks. But we did it, and we were ultimately successful. We were able to then send out very quickly the offers of enrollment. And another big sigh of relief, the courses started yesterday online, and we're up and running in the new academic year. So that was a great triumph from the standpoint of how the technology worked and how it was deployed and how the team really pulled together. So where are we now? We're into classes. They are entirely online at the start of this semester because of what I've said earlier about the important element of hands-on. We're hopeful that as the semester progresses or into the next semester, we can start to bring students into in small cohorts onto campus. But we haven't been given the green light on that yet. So curriculum has been redesigned in a way that the online components can be undertaken in advance. And then hopefully as things clear up, we can start to bring small cohorts of students in for laboratories and the like. So I'll leave it at that, other than to say one of the things that all of us have encountered is that this has been a necessity. We had no choice but to be thrown into the deep end of the pool to try and learn to swim. And I'm just so proud of the team at the Polytechnic for how they've been able to do so. But the thing that everyone universally talks about is that this will make the institution stronger. We will get past this. We will get to a point where things get back to some level of normalcy. But the learning that people have acquired, the new pedagogical techniques, the resiliency of our students are all things that we know ultimately are going to add to the quality of the learning experience for both today's students and the students tomorrow. And as Dr. Fadi was saying, with all the new deployment of technology that's out there, I think our people are now much better armed, having gone through this, to really think in innovative ways about new pedagogical techniques in the years to come. So I don't look at the glass as half empty, the glass is half full, and there are opportunities that will arise out of this necessity. So once again, thank you very much. I appreciate the comments and look forward to some of the dialogue a little bit later.
Thank you, Dr. Jeff, Professor Jeff. Very excellent and inciting of your presentation. I can feel the passion, the way you talk about the kids, because we all lived it and living it in the education sector. And but always I always say, since I'm coming from both industries, we were pushing this technology from many years, but the top management always resisted the classical management, and they like face-to-face. They will say, let's go to hybrid at least. But now it's an opportunity. COVID, I think we look at it as an opportunity for all of us to really move on. And this, I'm actually driving all of you towards the panel session with a question that I send you. Thank you very much. Excellent presentation. And let me move to the next honorable speaker, Dr. Mohammed Baqir. He's going to talk about e-learning quality. He's going to look into the quality, which is the assessment is part of it, which I thought this is one of the most challenging things in this online delivery. Dr. Mohammed Baqir is currently the Vice President of Information Technology Services, Administrative and Financial Affairs at the University of Bahrain. He's well known in the academia. He's also as a keynote speaker in many. He is a keynote speaker and reviewer of many conferences and journals, and an active researcher in the fields of artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and more. Let me welcome Dr. Mohammed, and I leave the panel, the stage for him to give us his insight to the subject.
Thank you, Dr. Ali Soufi, for this introduction. I don't know if you can view my slides now.
Yes.
Right.
In the session, in the presentation mode, can you put in this presentation mode? Yes, I think. Corina? Jane? The presentation is, put it in the presentation mode, please.
Just click F5.
Just click F5. Okay.
Doctor,
Yes.
please press the slideshow mode.
Now we can see you in the.
Dr. Bakr. Yeah.
Same. I think I can continue like this.
Yeah. Okay. It's okay now.
All right. Okay, Dr. Ali.
F5. Yes. Yes. Yeah. You're
Okay.
okay now. Yes.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Ali, for your patience. I think I agree with Dr. Jeff Zabaski about that COVID-19 or the pandemic provided a lot of opportunities actually for the higher education sector, challenging opportunities, but indeed there are opportunities. However, we are still mainly tackling those opportunities with classical solutions. My presentation will mainly focus on the quality assurance aspects of e-learning, and how at the University of Bahrain we kind of transferred or transformed our quality assurance system to adapt to the current setting of the pandemic. I'll start with a little of an introduction about learning then in the past and now, and then I'll move toward the University of Bahrain approach and what we have achieved in changing the learning and teaching and learning perspective in the University of Bahrain. Of course, when we talk about quality assurance, we need measuring tools to measure the quality assurance or the matter that we want to evaluate. Course syllabus, assessment, student performance, and so on. And each of those, let's say, elements need to have a specific tool to measure. Of course, there are many ways to evaluate and determine the best, let's say, aspect of an e-learning environment or e-learning course. It all depends on the customer, depends on the delivery, depends on the teacher and the institution. In the past, of course, if you can remember, typewriters were evaluated, the students were evaluated or the learners were evaluated by not having mistakes, punctuation, the speed of their typing and formatting. Of course, when Microsoft Word were introduced a long time ago, this same metric wasn't very applicable because you have spell checkers, formatting is almost auto done by the software itself, and some other aspects, for example, speed, maybe some kind of human interference in terms of grammar and spelling, but it became very, very easy. So the previous kind of measurement or the previous type of evaluation weren't much applicable or useful to determine the best students or the best secretaries to actually use or type letters. We are moving, these days we're moving from the teaching kind of focused environment or methodologies to the learner-centered environment where we focus on learning outcomes, experience of the students, the flexibility of programs is abundant among programs. You can select, the students can select courses, they can select material, they can even select the teachers they want to kind of learn from. There are many ways of learning. Of course, the face-to-face approach, and the other end of this kind of metric is the distance learning. These days in higher education, mainly we are focused on the mixed mode and the distance education. The pandemic really forced everyone kind of to accept this change quickly and to adapt their kind of teaching and learning, course syllabus, learning outcomes, and even how can we make sure that the students actually gain the experience that we expect them to do. As Dr. Jeff mentioned about the exams, it's really kind of challenging because we need to kind of make sure that the students are actually themselves doing the exams, themselves doing the assessment, and so on. Today, students are of generation Z or Y. They are born into this kind of world with a lot of tech around them, users of this technology since their early age of growing up. And so they are expecting from us to kind of have the ability to learn anything, anywhere, anytime. They challenge kind of the system because they will say, why can't you watch a YouTube to learn rather than sit in a classroom and learn from a particular teacher? You can learn from anyone from anywhere in the world and select the time that they want to learn, actually. When we talk about e-learning, we talk about content. This is very, very classical, but how the content is delivered, is it by video, is it by textbooks, small messages, slides, and so on? And who's teaching the course? Affordability, is it a free course or is it actually paid, and so on? So the customer or the learner's approach or selecting which course meet their requirements is really, really different. If we go back to trying to determine which is the best course or which is the best program to join, the students need to have some kind of a quality assurance system to ensure them that they are entering the right course for them, to ensure that they are going to have the value of their time and money that they're going to spend. And in the end of the day, they're going to have a qualification or a certificate or a degree that will kind of testify that they have gained the skills and knowledge and competencies that they have aimed to gain throughout their program or course. There are many definitions of quality assurance and accreditation, but they all agree that you need to kind of evaluate or benchmark a course or a program against a set of criteria. This criteria can differ, of course, from one country to another. It depends on the context of the delivery, the requirement of the national requirement, and so on. If this program was offered internationally, or is it a local program? How was this program being designed, and who are the learners learning from this program? With the availability of all the kind of e-learning or MOOC platforms, it's really hard for the students to determine which course is the best, which platform is the most useful one. They end up registering in all kind of platforms. And this created actually a problem for e-learning providers or MOOC providers. Because if you look at the numbers of the number of students or learners completing the courses is really, really small. One of the studies showed that there are about 2% of all learners joining a e-learning course, especially MOOC kind of courses, actually complete the course and receive a degree and sit for the assessment. A majority of the learners either lose interest after, let's say, few courses, or they didn't have really the aim of sitting an exam and completing, let's say, a program. In quality assurance, the quality assurance, the system itself, provide employers or provide students, parents with the ability to make informed decisions on the value of the qualifications, value of the courses, and it helps them avoid those qualification mills or redundant kind of degrees that make no sense to study or complete. Maybe they have a very fancy kind of title, but it does not reflect the content or doesn't reflect the aims or learning outcomes. There are some number of, let's say, standards that majority of quality assurance system focus on. Learners, advising, closing the loop, quality assurance, how credit is recognition. These are the standard kind of approaches. And it may also be applicable when you apply it to e-learning and mock courses. However, there are many aspects that does not really kind of apply when we teach mock or e-learning courses. For example, student to faculty ratio. It wouldn't make any sense when you have kind of a theoretical lecture to provide to your students to have a cap on the number of students when you are going to deliver a big lecture of, let's say, 100 or 200 students. So when you measure the student to faculty ratio in an e-learning, it will lose marks or lose all marks in comparison to classical kind of approach where you are restricted with the number of students in the classrooms. Admission requirement with the kind of, let's say, lifelong learning approaches becoming very common around the world. Students kind of, or learners or anyone interested can log in to any of those platforms without checking any of their background qualifications. They can register in a course and attempt to complete this course. So admission requirements are not really there when we are talking about mock platforms or e-learning. Physical facilities, very limited access, even these days in higher education institutions in Bahrain or outside Bahrain, in the States or Europe, where they mainly focus on postgraduate studies, students accessing some of the lab equipment and material, and very limited kind of access to any of the facilities, sports facilities or classrooms, and mainly all the deliveries happening online. Graduation rate, as I mentioned earlier, there is a high number of, let's say, learners attempting to study a mock program or e-learning program because they're open to the public, but the number of students actually completing those courses at the end of the day is very limited. So we can't really say that the program is very good because the number of students graduating from this program is very high, as in the classical kind of approach. At the University of Bahrain, when this pandemic happened, we quickly kind of forced all of our, let's say, quality assurance teams to kind of provide us with a framework that we can work with and help all our faculty kind of transform their classical teaching and learning to a e-learning kind of approach without compromising the quality. So we had proposed a lot of guidelines, training. The main issue that we had is that a lot of learning outcome couldn't be done in kind of the e-learning kind of aspects. So we had to kind of tailor learning outcome, change them a little bit to meet the expectation of the students without harming a lot the overall kind of learning outcome of the course. The e-learning center in the University of Bahrain was established a long time ago in 2009 or 6, and we had a lot of experience in providing e-learning to students. But with the COVID-19 happening, the speed or the rate of moving all the courses to have online kind of material happened really quickly in a very, very short time. Even faculty with, let's say, not a lot of experience in building their courses, transferring the slides, using, let's say, e-learning platforms to deliver, let's say, assessment, it quickly adapted. Regarding to two kind of aspects, I think the technology became much easier, and the pandemic also forced everyone to kind of try their best and dedicate themselves into transforming their classrooms into the e-learning, because we had no kind of choice really into maintaining the old classical ways. Learning outcome, as I said, they're very, very important. So we tried our best to go back to see our colleagues around the world in other universities. How are they going to change the learning outcomes? How are they going to move the learning outcomes that demanded physical attendance into kind of learning outcomes that can be measured without harming the kind of overall outcomes. For example, we really kind of focus on and increase the trust of the students and in their ability to do, for example, the exercises. I'll give you one example that transformed very good, which is the physical education kind of courses, where they requested the students to do the exercises and show them the performance by recording videos and send it back to their teachers. Of course, they couldn't do to all sports. For example, team sports and group sports didn't really work out very good, but still, they managed to do a lot of activities, and technology of these days help them kind of record and send back to their teachers and evaluate them and so on. Assessment is a big challenge. Proctoring exams, grading the students.
Dr. Mohammed, you can wrap up if you want.
Inshallah.
Your time is over.
All right. Okay, I'll wrap up quickly. I'll just go to the end. The pros and cons of, let's say, e-learning. Today, it's anywhere, anytime, any place. We have high synergy, high quality kind of material and videos. We enrich the learning. It's really focused on centered learning. There are a little bit of, let's say, disadvantages toward of how much facilities are provided to the students, what access they have to physical kind of labs, and so on. And thank you very much, Dr. Ali.
Thank you, Dr. Mohammed. Thank you very much for your excellent presentation. Very fruitful. Let me move to the final speaker. And we have here Mr. Ahmed Ibrahim. His topic will be learning never stops. Ahmed is a regional education specialist in Microsoft Middle East cluster, working with education institutes to enable digital teaching and learning strategy and technology adoption through Microsoft Education Transformation Framework. But before Ahmed starts, I have one little comment. I think one of the biggest challenges we all face or been facing is the assessment, as Dr. Mohammed mentioned as well, and as well the practical session. These are, I think, the thing which we really need to think of in the future steps. Mr. Ahmed, please, the platform is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Ali, for the introduction, and thank you for the invitation to attend this event and have the chance to speak to in such a great platform. So I would just want to start with complementing what most of the speakers actually flagged, which is the COVID-19 and pandemic, of course, and highlighting our CEO message on COVID-19 that it did impact everyone. It impacted the students, it impacted the families, it impacted the educators, everyone who's part of this ecosystem. However, we as technology pioneers or as the technology leaders, not only Microsoft, but the other companies as well, we're really invested in the same time to ensure that the response to COVID-19 in terms of the platform availability and enablement for this remote learning and teaching is something that happens in a much faster way than faster time than the expectation. And therefore, today we see 150 million students, over 150 million students and teachers actually going on hybrid remote learning model on our platform. And we have invested in having 400 dedicated engineers to make sure that we have the features needed, the platform, the bandwidth, the networking, aligning with telcos. So direct engineering teams who are working with the customers and with the field to make sure that this is something that goes in a smooth transition. And of course, our learning platform that has thousands of content to enable the IT admins in the ministries and universities and schools to actually have the skills needed to manage this environment. And to be honest, in this journey, I personally see that it was some sort of a flipped classroom. So we were not teaching the customers or educating the customer of how using technology. We were learning from them during the COVID-19 pandemic. What are their needs? What are their visions? What are their approaches to actually use the technology? And based on that, yeah, I've never seen Microsoft releasing so many new features and updates in such a small time for education specifically, which happened because of the request of the education sector. This happened because also the education sectors, basically all the digital transformation strategy that they had and planned over 2-3 years, they have completed that digital transformation journey, or at least 50%, 60% of it in a matter of weeks. I had the privilege to work with customers in the region, and I've seen how quickly they adopted the technology and released the technology to the students and the education end users. So, but again, when we are looking at it from a customer perspective, from Microsoft perspective, we always need to look into 6 key elements of that remote learning environment or e-learning environment. One is the identity and the credentials. Now we want to make sure that the students, teachers, the system leaders, and management, they all have easy access to the different tools. And we're not talking only about logging into one product with a different username and password, and another has different username and password, but to have that single sign-on that enables easy access to everyone, instead of having these multiple IT requests of changing passwords, forgetting passwords for the LMS or for Office 365 or the SAS and so on. The privacy and security, that's very important, that's key to make sure, again, if I'm giving students the ability to connect online, and as parents, we're leaving the students with a machine or a device for 6 hours a day or 8 hours a day, we need to make sure that they are using the platform in the right way. The content that they get does not have any targeted ads, does not have this kind of things that are or have any data and privacy leaks as well. And this is something that is a priority for us in Microsoft. The 365, Microsoft 365 and Teams, of course, hand to hand as our e-learning platform, and devices. Talking about devices today, you can access these solutions, or you can access everything related to education from the phone, tablet, laptop. Again, it's not only operating system that we're talking about is not only Windows, but even if you have an Android device or an iOS device, you need to access these. And this is the enablement that Microsoft also has been focusing on. Data and AI to help the decision makers having informed decisions, have the parents to be able to see the performance of their students, of their kids in the remote learning environment, and of course, skills and employability. And that would take me hours to talk only about this point. Few months ago, we were talking to customers and saying, you are preparing students for jobs that didn't exist. And the jobs in 2025 will be different than the jobs today. But with this, what happened and the transformation that happened over the last few months, I think this is very important now, teaching the students the skills of the future, teaching the students not only technology, but every skill that they need to do. And when we talk technology, few years ago, being a coder or a developer was sufficient to get a job. Today, people with degrees in AI are actually looking into things beyond artificial intelligence, things like quantum computing, things like future technology. And this is something that we need to make sure that the students are capable of. These are some of the case studies that we have or highlight throughout the world during the COVID-19. We've been working with many ministers of education in the region and globally. Kuwait, for example, they are going with 500,000 students in October live for remote learning. UAE already with 1 million students. Saudi Arabia going next week with 6 million students live on Teams as well. So to make sure that the platform is capable and scalable enough to have this high request or this high demand of use. And of course, a key highlight here is that I want to highlight is what the Ministry of Education Bahrain did. Of course, again, Ministry of Education, Bahrain Polytechnic, University of Bahrain, they all went into the remote learning, and we see it that it's been really empowered by the institutes, and the employees there had the skills to enable that remote learning initiative. But I want to specifically talk about the Ministry of Education in Bahrain because of the unique model that they actually adopt. So when we said in the beginning of the COVID-19, we're going with remote learning. Remote learning was, we need a platform to create virtual classes and put the subjects listed there, and then we will ask the teacher to go and teach her students accordingly. The Ministry of Education Bahrain adopted a very unique model, which is, you know what, I have 1,000 teachers because I have, for example, 1,000 biology teacher because I have 3,000 classes that they need to teach. But today I can put all the students who are taking biology in one class and have the best teacher or the best 2-3 teachers delivering the lessons. So all students getting the same level of education, getting the same quality of education, and being able to enable this platform. And this is why Bahrain has adopted that central learning, where they have central subject teachers, subject experts, teaching all the students who are taking the same subject. And this is now being adopted. Bahrain was the first, and now it's being adopted in other ministries across the world. And we had a global case study that talks about what the Ministry of Education Bahrain has been able to do. And again, they have utilized most of the tools to enable that. It was not only about delivering the class, but how I can do online quizzes with auto grading. I can give a quiz to 10,000 students in the same time and have the grading happen immediately after they submit their quiz. We're talking with customers about solutions that can have AI-enabled proctors. So I can take the exam today for my high school graduation year or university year. I can take it from home, and I will have my camera enabled as an artificial intelligence enabled proctor. If I gaze right or left, or if I tend to cheat in any way, I will be flagged to the institutes. So these solutions are coming now and has high demand on getting these solutions in the hand of the institutes. And of course, complementing the software. Hardware, I will not talk about it a lot, but there are many features, of course, on hardware that enables remote learning, embedded features in the operating systems as well. But I'm happy to see that digital transformation moved away from the discussion of, you know what, we have devices for students, how we can use them. Today, we have the need that the student have. There are the scenarios, what is the best device for me? And this was very important because millions of dollars of investment some education institutes do in getting devices that are not right for their scenario. Devices can go from $100 up to $3,000, but it's not about getting the best device in the market. It's about getting the best scenario and user scenario that we have. And we see today that customers who are looking for devices have that maturity level. Now they know the scenario, what kind of features they want to enable and manage for the students. And based on that, they take the decision on what device suit their requirements. Again, on informed decisions, we invest a lot in, we know that the customer has a lot of data generated out of these e-learning platforms. We want to give them the platform of visualizing these data. And this is why with Power Platform or Power BI, we enable education institutes to have that top management informed decision. What's the performance on mathematics for students across Bahrain, or maybe geographically, maybe the students in a specific city in Bahrain are high performing in mathematics. So that also enables that kind of decision making or better decision making, where I need to change a teacher or build a school or drive traffic or align with the traffic department to change, you know, morning routes and so on. So having that kind of decision making. Hybrid learning, again, I think this model is here to stay. We were talking about digital and remote learning, but again, by end of the day, even after COVID-19, we will see that kind of digital involvement in our day-to-day interaction. When we talk about the who are the people or stakeholders in remote learning. It starts with the decision makers and system leaders to make sure that they have the right tools in the hand of the education system. The school leaders, of course, they need to be able to digest that idea and able to build a vision towards digital transformation in order for them to lead the teachers to enable these kind of technology adoption. The teachers themselves, it's not only about giving them the platform, it's making sure they use it in the best scenario. Am I giving them the platform to only go and open the camera and talk? Or beyond that, I will going to create interactive lesson using whiteboard, digital whiteboard. I'm going to use inking capabilities. I'm going to have quizzes and on-the-fly questions to the students to make it more interactive instead of the student just looking at the screen without any interaction. The students themselves, they are the innovators. Give them any tool, it's easy for them to adopt. So you don't worry about them learning the tool, but you worry about them being able to create content. At this point, when we have the digital and remote learning, we need to make sure that the students are able to create content, are able to share that content and learning from each other and not only learning on a classroom model. And the parents, of course, who are, let's say, the most valuable and respectful person in this equation will always be the parent. The parents who are investing a lot of time with their students to make sure that they get the right learning in the remote learning environment. They also need to be educated. They need to be informed about the performance of their students. It should not be only giving them the material and ask them to follow up with the students. They can be more involved in the process by making sure that they have insights on how the classroom runs, what are the things that the teacher asking the students as skills to learn, and then we ask the parent to enable their kids at home to drive this. Of course, I will not talk about the different tools. I just want to move ahead with the final slide that I have, which is the education transformation framework. Basically, the education transformation framework is a result of hundreds of studies that Microsoft did with education institutes in K-12 and higher education across the world. And it focuses on 4 pillars: leadership and policy, having that vision of digital transformation, teaching and learning, giving the right tools to the students and teachers, students and school success by giving them the ability to have content that prepare them for the future jobs, that future ready skills piece, and then the intelligent environment to make sure that they work within an intelligent environment. These 4 pillars, we have an intensive study on it. We work with customers on workshops over weeks to discuss these pillars in details and make sure that we have the right vision for the next 5 years of the digital transformation strategy in education. That's pretty much it from my side. I hope that I made it in time, and thank you again for the opportunity. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to take.
Thank you, Ahmed, very much for your very interesting presentation. There will be this is the final presentation, and we're going to move now into the panel session. Ahmed, there will be also one question for you later on. I will give it to you to tease you a little bit as a Microsoft, okay? And in addition to before we start, let me introduce 2 more honorable speakers. We have Mr. Nawal Khater. She is the Undersecretary at Ministry of Education. She is joining us. Welcome, Mrs. Nawal. And we have also Mr. Saeed Zaidan, CEO and founder of Ultimates. Also, we'll welcome Mr. Saeed to the panel. And the first question will be, we have like 15 minutes, inshallah. We'll have one personal question and one general question, which already sent it to you. The general question is, what if we pass this crisis? What do you think we should go? Should we go to the normal face-to-face, fully normal face-to-face, or fully online, or a hybrid, and why? This is a general question. We can start with Dr. Fadi in sequence, or if you allow me, Dr. Fadi, let's give us a chance to the newcomers. I will start with Mrs. Nawal, then Mr. Said
Sure.
to answer this question.
Please do, sure.
Yeah, so that they have an opportunity as they waited with us for 1 hour. تفضلي استاذة نوال.
Thank you, Dr. Ali, for giving me this opportunity, and thank you for the organizers to put me in this panel. In fact, it was really a very fruitful session. I learned a lot from all of you. And I think we discussed some of these, maybe we tackled this question during the different presentations, as even we are in this now, this situation with the COVID-19, and we have still these scenarios to be covered during the situation, or even after that. I think in any scenario, we cannot avoid e-learning in any way. It is part of the learning process as we are moving on. Now, the whole world, the whole life is integrated now with technology. So we cannot avoid it with only with education. Education also should be part of this, the whole transformation. And I think it is the most important part to have this transformation, because education is the most important pillar in life. All different sectors will be, the outcomes of this sector, the education sector. So I think education should be part of the e-learning, should be an important part of it, and especially now with the online learning, because as we see with the different products we have, for example, with Microsoft or the different solutions we heard of today, these solutions are there, and we need to make use of them. I think our students, they have the right to learn in this way, because this is their life. Maybe we think that we are introducing to them this technology in schools or in university, but I believe it is part of their life. They do everything with technology, so I think they can learn with technology. Myself, I believe that informal learning is much higher than the formal learning. And I think our students now, they learn informally through the education, using the different tools they have in their hands. For example, like YouTube. This is one a simple thing they have in their daily life. They learn a lot. They can learn about everything, as Dr. Mohammed mentioned. They can learn anything, anytime, anywhere. So I believe that we, as decision makers in the education sector, either in K-12 or in higher education, I think we need to ensure that our students have this opportunity. And I think we, in the Kingdom of Bahrain, I think we are really very lucky to have this opportunity. As for example, we started back in 2005 with a national project called King Hamad Schools of the Future. And in this one, we introduced a national project for all students. I think this is long back time, 15 years ago, but I think because we believe in this, we moved also to another development era of this project, which is called the Digital Empowerment in Education. And at that time, back in 2015, we started our educational portal. And also we worked hand in hand with Microsoft as our partner, Microsoft, Mr. Ahmed Ibrahim mentioned. We provided our students a long time back with 365 accounts. And this enabled our students to use everything online now. They can work with their smartphones now, using the applications like Word or PowerPoint. And we are proud to say that our students now are creators of the knowledge. They are not only passive learners. No, they are in fact creating knowledge. And maybe because of that, our students and our teachers, they won the first prize of ASESCO. This is of having open educational resources. So I think it is not a question now. It is, we need to pave the way. We need to ensure that we have this opportunity for everyone, not only the students, as most of us we mentioned. I think everyone should be involved, as Mr. Ahmed in his final slides, he you mentioned that everyone should be there and should be prepared. The parents, the decision makers, the school principals. It's not only the learning between the teacher and the students, everyone should be involved. And to do this, I think we need to ensure the professional development. Everyone should be trained and learned. We are talking about long life learning. And also we need to choose the right tools. The right tools are really important because tools are there and everywhere, but choosing the right tools for the students and for the teachers and for all of us, I think at any level, we need to have them. And I think for us here in Bahrain, I think we passed, as my colleagues also mentioned, in the higher education, because I think we have the readiness. The readiness is there. So since now we have the readiness, I think we need to continue. And maybe, as all of us, we mentioned also in these presentations, that by this pandemic, COVID-19, I think everything went fast. So maybe things will be much easier now because everyone was involved. As Dr. Jeff mentioned, we need to start swimming. No, I think everyone is now trained and everyone is ready for what is coming. I think, Dr. Ali, there is no question here. We need to move on. We need to ensure that.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Sid Nawal. Very, very fruitful response. May I switch to Mr. Saeed? تفضل أستاذ سعيد.
Thank you, Dr. Ali. Actually, it's my pleasure to be here today with your respectful guests in this very important event. And the time of the event is very good because we are now talking about something that all the world are talking about, but related directly to your question, because the time is limited. I think your question is the $1 million question. I don't think the answer is direct away to say we need the hybrid model, online only, we need the blended learning, or you know, it's not 0-1 answer. I think first of all we have to do to differentiate between K-12 and higher education. What applies for universities does not apply 100% for K-12. This is very important to mention, and I think the methods and approaches that we need to implement, we should look into universities totally different than schools. And when we talk about schools, grade 1 to 4 is totally different than talking about grade 5 to 12. I don't know if you accept this idea, first of all, or not, but from my experience as I'm working in the education sector since 25 years, and we provide IT solutions for education. We went through the experience with multiple countries, multiple universities, schools, and we've seen very clearly that when we went fully online with universities, for example, in Jordan or in Palestine, things were very, very easy, and the adoption was very quickly. But in schools, things were totally different. There were many, many challenges, especially when we were talking about grade 1 to 4. Those kids less than 10 years old, the challenge was a real challenge, and we were supposed to involve parents as much as we can as part of the education process. The second thing that I want to mention here is the approach. If we succeed in doing a reform, or you can call it transformation, that we take students from the model of teaching into learning, this will be a real achievement. We have to work hardly, especially in the Arab world, to convince students and teachers and all stakeholders that we want to emphasize on the learning process. We need to create more learners. I remember 10 years ago when I went to a training course, how to do a student-centric teaching approach instead of teacher-centric approach. Now in the online era, I think we have to emphasize on the learning, not on teaching. Involving all stakeholders, including parents, is very important. The third thing that I want to mention here, and it is very important and was a real challenge, the content itself. When we go online, fully online or hybrid, and when we emphasize on the learning process, we need content. The digital content, we lack it. We don't see it on the internet. You can go and see easily that there are a lot of content that's related to curriculums in Europe or in United States, but not on the something related to the Arab world. We've seen some initiatives in some countries doing some 15 minutes videos for teachers, but the quality was not good. And the third thing, I believe the tools comes later. I know that Microsoft, for example, as Ahmed mentioned, they have Microsoft Teams, they have Microsoft Office Online, it has the white blackboard, it has everything. But I think, first of all, we need the method of education. We need to create a new culture for the education. We need to fully transform the traditional education into a new education model. And thanks for, sorry for this, but thanks for COVID-19, because it put all of us in a real challenge to change the education that we were talking about since 30 or 40 years in the Arab world.
Thank you.
This is my last message. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me just open this. Apologies here. Let me just see you all again. Thank you, Mr. Saeed. Very excellent response, and you really put your hand on the right places. You talked about the young and old, the differentiating between the students, and as you know, we need a lot of assistance for the younger students. You talked about learning and teaching. The content, which is a major problem in the Arab world. We don't have content. And the last way is the method which we said. I totally agree with you. Is making people use a new teaching methods as well, and the tools. Thank you very much for your input. Let me move to the next speaker panel. Maybe we can now move to Dr. Fadi. Sorry, we pushed you back a little bit in the queue. Dr. Fadi, maybe since you talked about the AI, okay, maybe you can merge the two questions, two answered into one, with regards to the post-COVID, and also since you talked about AI, how would AI have a role in content creation, since we talked about content, and as well the assessment? If this is a question, then.
So thank you, Dr. Ali. I'd like to start by saying, change is always good, but we always see resistance, from typically maybe employees or upper management and so on. And as Mr. Saeed mentioned, unfortunately, but thanks to COVID, that change was forced on us, and we had to experience this change and learn from its good and bad. And I think this was, a very useful experience for us. We went online in March. Our summer course was online. And also this semester fall term is fully online. And also I have to also agree with Mr. Saeed on a very important point which he raised, which is, what applies to a university doesn't apply to a school, and what applies to grade 5 doesn't apply to grade 10. And similarly, in a university, what applies to a law school doesn't apply to a medical school. So we learned that each have their needs, each needs different resources, different technology, different simulators, and so on. So, going back to physical, going back to blended, or continuing to online, hopefully after COVID-19 goes away, uh, that's probably a big question to be discussed, and probably will be discussed at the ministry level, and will come with different, rules and regulations. However, I do see that hybrid will probably be an option, since there has been many advantages to what we did from an online perspective, and also some challenges. We have to say we need to say that face to face is always important. The students miss the visiting the library, miss the face to face interaction, walking to somebody in the gym or in a bookstore or in the cafeteria, engaging in those, empowering their soft skills and so on. So the face to face is very important. We cannot just continue 100% online all the way. But similarly, I have to say this. I'd like to share this example where I had some students tell me, right now we do our office hours online or through a phone call. They called on my office line. It directs to my cell phone. And what was interesting, that the students were really happy about it, because typically you might find a student finishing, let's say, at noon, and his or her the office hours for the faculty is at 4 p.m. and they'll have to be on campus waiting till 4 p.m. And sometimes they even wait that faculty is busy or might be sick and doesn't show up and so on. So now from the comfort of their home or their cell phone, anywhere, they can call at 4 and basically get their answers for the questions that they have. So there are many good things that we gained from this experience, I believe. Now, back to your question, Ali, about AI and how does it involve? Well, AI definitely played a big role in, for example, in assessment. I can say that for us, all our assessments currently is online, and we are using AI technology through different tools like Respondus Monitor, Lockdown Browser, and so on, that the university has invested in to basically detect, for example, any cheating attempts, whether it was submitted documents or face impressions, or people, moving faces or moving their eyes and so on. So yes, AI did play a big role, I think, in assessments, and we're using it as we speak today. It gives you a flag or an indication of how likely is this student, cheating or not, and so on. It does auto grade. That's also great for us. It made things life easier for us. Now, in terms of material production, that we have not used, and I'm not sure really if we have that happening as we speak today in terms of producing valid material for a school level or a university level course. However, definitely we see technology and AI playing a big role in at least the assessment sector here, or the grading and the proctoring area. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fadi. May I move to Dr. Jeff with regards to the general question or the common question, and as well, maybe I asked you previously, how did you manage the assessment and the practical sessions? We don't want to end up with a mechanics that you can only change the engine virtually. We need physically also, and eventually in the workshop. So how did you manage that, Dr. Jeff?
Yeah, that's great. It's a very good point. So just generally speaking, I think that it really depends on both the level of education as well as the nature and the type of education we're talking about. I believe there's many disciplines, many courses that can easily be delivered and successfully delivered fully online. There's literature out there called that speaks to no significant difference in student outcomes when it's done well, when there's good instructional design. So absolutely, online can be very successful in certain areas. But as I noted, there are certain elements of curriculum that do require some form of hands-on. I don't want to drive across a bridge that was constructed by a welder who's never welded. So there does need to be some form of hands-on component. But just before I leave that aside, I would say that so that there needs to be, in some cases, that mix. But I wouldn't leave it at that. I think with the advent, as Dr. Fadi has talked about, of AI technology and new technologies, and as Dr. Muhammad has talked about, sort of moving away from classical methods, I think we can challenge ourselves to move things that we would normally think would need to be hybrid through simulations and other kinds of technology into a fully online mode. So I don't think we should stop there and say hybrid is only successful in these areas and online wouldn't be. I think that we, as we have been, need to continue to challenge ourselves to think in new ways with the advent of new pedagogies and new technologies of providing even more flexibility for students. The more specific question you asked is how did we address the laboratory components? We were fortunate that the students who were in their graduating year had already fulfilled, because we were just at the last half of the semester. So those students had pretty much made their way through the curriculum as it was traditionally presented with laboratories and classrooms. So we were able to get through those elements successfully. But you're right, it is a challenge going forward for the students who are in their third year. How are we going to ensure that they get those hands-on components? What we've done is we've readjusted curriculum in such a way as that laboratories can be placed at the end of the curriculum. And hopefully we're in a position where we can start to come back. And have our students in small cohorts address those. With your earlier year students, you have more flexibility to adjust things so that you can push things off into years 4. Sometimes students take 5 years to get through. So that is a challenge for us going forward. And I think it will be met through careful return, cautious return, meeting government restrictions and requirements around social distancing and limited numbers of students on campus. But also, I think the resilience of our faculty and their thoughtful ways of using technology in new ways to deliver what would normally have been something seen could only be done face-to-face or hands-on, may be done in the technological realm. But that's the story still to be told. But yes. I have great faith in the resilience and innovation of faculty to find those solutions.
Thank you, Dr. Jeff. Excellent. The last 2 questions to Dr. Muhammad, and then we have Ahmed. But please keep to 2 minutes so that because the session manager is nagging now on me, okay, to end it. تفضل Dr. Muhammad.
Dr. Sophie, if you are talking about how we're going to manage these kind of students' experience and transfer the students' experience with the current situation with no students attending on site, on campus. It's really very difficult. Students not only gain experience by attending classrooms, they gain experience by interacting with their colleagues, interacting with their advisors, being on campus. There is a lot of soft skills that they develop as they kind of progress in their academic kind of programs. These are the things that kind of no one is tackling, and very difficult kind of to provide to students. We also need to kind of think about kind of solutions that will kind of be sustainable, because we don't really know when it's COVID-19 will kind of end, what kind of effects we're going to have after the pandemic kind of disappears from Bahrain. So it's very difficult on what kind of things we're going to do after the pandemic. Are we going to continue e-learning as kind of a accredited, kind of recognized mode of learning, or are we going to go back to classical kind of teaching methodology?
Thank you, Dr. Muhammad. I'll move to last question to Ahmed. And I usually, vendors, I treat them differently. I tease them usually. So my question was really to do with your godfather. I mean, your godfather was always kind of helping people. Like here, some of the operators in the COVID time, they gave free the volume and speed, and so that they can help the society. So what was your Microsoft in Bahrain? What did you contribute in terms of what did you give to humanity in Bahrain?
Great, that's a good question. And I will make it fast as well. globally, we've actually, with the beginning of the pandemic, we have waived all the subscriptions for the remote platform, not only for education, but even for commercial. So M365 license and so on was free for 6 months. And we continue until now, increased capacity for free for education and so on. This is in terms of what Microsoft is doing as product. We are a platform company. We're giving the platform for free for anyone in need. We're always there to support startups, students, and the small businesses especially, and with commercial in certain scenarios like COVID-19. In Bahrain, I think that we've been, as Bahrain team here, and no resources who were able to travel. I think the team did a great job. I work in education. I've been working commercial sector. I've been working with the small schools to enable them that I didn't focus on. I had technical people coming with me to education, solution specialists coming to me to the education. So I think that we had the resources. It was great. We brought online lots of engineers into the discussions, teams engineers, data center engineers, to make sure that the customers really are comfortable and confident that when they go live, this is going to work. This was the most important thing. The customer didn't want to go live and then students see someone who's just halting on every second. And it worked, alhamdulillah. Again,
Okay.
this is, yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ahmed. Thank you to all our honorable speakers and panel members for your great. I really enjoyed the short journey we were together, and inshallah, we'll meet in future in other conferences. Also, thank to all the participants who asked the number of questions. We will inshallah respond to you by email, since the time is short. And I would like to tell you, inshallah, thank you, and wish you all the best. Take care of yourself and your families. Enjoy your time, but the distance, not distance learning, but social distance we need. Okay, and thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.